$500,000 in additional revenue, 500 days of manual work saved, and all of this with a single voice AI solution. These are not fake numbers, this is the actual reality of the results we achieved for one of our clients. And in today's video, I'm going to let you in on the sauce. I'm going to show you things that no one really shares online, which are the results of an actually successful case study. Now, what you're going to learn in this video might change the way you see voice AI, and I hopefully get you convinced to really jump on this train and understand the pure power that lays in these solutions. I will show you the exact behind the scenes on how we achieved a solution that is 15 times cheaper than the human equivalent, how we made them over $500,000 in additional pipeline revenue, and a couple of other really cool stats that you definitely don't want to miss. I will also share with you what that case study was about, so you get some insights on the solution we actually built. I'll also show you some relevant numbers from these kind of solutions in the first place that you really need to understand, because they are the biggest differentiator on you understanding how much value a solution like this actually provides. Then I'll show you the actual numbers on how well this project has performed, with insights that you've most likely not seen in any other video out there, alongside with some additional insights that really blow your mind, learnings that we had that literally changed the way on how we build solutions for enterprises and for small, medium-sized businesses. And lastly, to top everything off, I'm also going to give you as a bonus the actual case study that we recorded with our client that I want to use as well as proof to you that this is an actual thing and that these numbers are not really made up. Now, I'm usually very hesitant sharing case studies online because I'm very protective about the client base that we have, but today I make an exception to show you that voice AI is actually a real thing, because I know people are still very hesitant about it. And for anyone who doesn't even know who I am, my name is Yannis Moore and I run my own voice AI agency since the beginning of 2024. We build voice agents for small, medium-sized businesses up to enterprises and have done really exceptional results since then. And at the beginning of this year, we started our own educational program, which is now helping over 4,000 people to leverage voice AI either for their business or as a service to gain a life of freedom and work from wherever they want. And the best part of this is that this is not actually just everything online. We have in-person meetups. We actually meet community members, as you can see here. There's our meetup in Germany with a really cool people, Henrik, my business partner as well. Here's a meetup in London that we organized earlier, and here's one in Dubai. So we actually get people together in real life and exchange knowledge, which is just priceless to us. Now, I really hope this gives you a perspective that voice AI is an actual thing. Otherwise, all of those people wouldn't probably be there. Many of them make a living literally from voice AI, from anything that we teach them inside of our program, and they leverage it in a unique way, and everyone for their very own industry. It is a super exciting market, but enough of that. Let's dive into the actual case study. So first of all, obviously, what is this whole case study about? What is this whole project about that we created for that client? And the main idea is that we try to contact leads that they already had prior. So we always talk about lead reactivation, right? So they have contacted these leads prior to actually acquiring them. They interacted, but they just dropped off, so they never even came back. So mostly any kind of business that does any kind of lead generation has usually some sort of list with clients or leads that they potentially have been in contact prior to that and that they just never really did anything with. So for most companies, this is just a dead thing. It's just laying around there. And what we do with those lead reactivation agents is basically try to reactivate them by taking the details, calling them up and seeing whether or not they're still interested in the offer, service or product, whatever that might be that this company is selling. So what we do is we basically take something that the business doesn't really use in the first place because they just don't have the time to call up these people from previously, and we reactivate them with a smart set of rules and scenarios to get them new fresh leads based on someone that is already warm. This is the whole idea behind it, and you will be surprised how incredibly well this works. Now, before diving into the actual numbers, I want to show you some standards and insights in the industry that hopefully help you to really understand the scope and the power that these solutions have. Without this knowledge, you only have part of the equation, which is why I believe you should always really understand the market that you're in. So if you're a business and you want to build them for yourself, you need to understand those numbers so you actually know how valuable they become. And if you offer that as a service, you should also understand those numbers so you know how to market them properly. And now we're starting with a couple of standards, and I'm not going to go too deep into them. You can just read through them. But the biggest one here is, for example, the agents that do manual dialing, right? So let's, for example, say you have an agent that actually calls these manual lead lists in a company, right? Let's say we have a real estate agent, and that real estate agent has a list of 20,000 contacts, and there must be a human that would usually just call through them and see if someone is still interested in a property or is still selling something. Now, a normal human can do around 45 calls per day. on an average, right? This always obviously varies. So it might be 45, might be 50. Good people or excellent people can do 60. Then there are some extras with power dialers and predictive dialers where you can make even more, but this is usually not the norm, right? So if you actually do calls manually, it's 45 calls to 50 calls per day. So this is an industry standard you should remember. And then you should also put into consideration that people are actually humans, right? They need breaks, they need coffee breaks, whatever that is. So you have an effective work time of 6 hours. At least here on the example, even though I would say it's probably less than that, because that means 6 hours of high focus is usually nothing a normal employee does. And to make you understand how that plays in with the industry that we've been building this assistant for, we had a normal call length of around 3 minutes with 2 minutes actual talking time, and with manual data entry, which usually is then a total of 5 minutes, right? So that means a human that would be in that company, and like a power human could potentially do 72 calls in a day, like if they would literally just call all the time, which obviously is usually not the case, right? So 72 calls per day, if you have a lead list of 20,000 people, that's a lot of time that you would need to call through. So from that alone, you probably see that there are already a lot of limitations that come in if a human would call all of those leads. And to top that off, there's a couple of more stats that I'd like to share with you, which is, for example, that the earlier you call a lead, the more you get out of that. And this is actually tremendous. You can see here, for example, that if you call the lead within the first minute, you can get a boost in conversions with up to 391%. And this is for inbound and outbound. This is insane. So this really means the quicker you call them, the more money you make. It is as simple as that. That is something really important that you should write down and use either for yourself or for marketing. Then if you call a lead within the first 5 minutes after them interacting with your company or signing up a form or filling out a form, it makes them 21 times more likely to turn into an actual opportunity. This again is a massive game changer to a business. You can imagine if you get 21 times more clients at a certain time, you can imagine that you're gonna make a lot of more revenue, given that your other processes are in place and properly set up, of course. And then another stat that often hurts business owners, which is 78% of B2B customers buy from the first vendor that they hear from. So if another of your competitors was contacted as well and they answer quicker, you lost that lead literally to them. This is something powerful and that really, really hurts. And whether or not you sell it as a service, you can use it again for marketing. And this is something you should definitely understand because it helps you in so many aspects of you building voice agents. Now, these are all the details that I wanted to share with you. I want to make sure that you really have them. By the way, you will find the document as well as a download below this video, so you can get that for yourself and literally learn from that. My goal is to educate you with everything that we know about voice AI to make sure you can succeed in that space. Now, that said, let's dive into the actual numbers. And trust me, they're going to be exciting. Now, right here we have the product stats, and what we did with this campaign, we called on approximately 20,000 leads, and we did a total of around 36,000 calls for those leads. So you can see that we not just called them once, we even called them multiple times. There is a lot of things that go into the setup with call cadence, etc. So I'm gonna go into that as well a little bit later in this slide. Then this, by the way, accounts for a total of 1.8 calls per lead on average. And what's probably most interesting for me is the completion rate, which is 27.5%. And this, by the way, isn't the actual final completion rate. It would be closer to 32%, because there's a couple of more things that go into that made these extra few percents possible. And I'll show you that as well in the next slides, because a voice AI solution is not just a voice AI solution. It's something I tell literally everyone out there. Now, another cool aspect is that the call system itself, basically the whole infrastructure of the calls that we ran for those 36,000 calls, was an approximate $3,000. This is incredibly cheap for these amount of calls. And to put that into words, you can see here that we basically had 36,000 calls in total. 27.5% have been booked. Like I said, it's obviously more. It's more like 31, 32. So that accounts, at least with this number, at 5,500 booked calls for the mere cost of $3,000 of the pure AI calling. Now, $3,000 isn't the actual final price. There's a lot more that goes into that, which is the whole tech stack. So basically anything you use for automations, for saving data, storing data, obviously service fees for the person who builds it out or the company who builds it, etc. So that is something you got to keep in mind. But what I'm really excited about is this part down here. You can see that I wrote here, product price $3,000 each if that lead is converted. And trust me when I say that this is a very, very conservative number. If you look at the graph right here, we have a quick list that shows you how much you can get out of that with a scenario that is, again, extremely passive. If we get, for example, from those 5,500 book calls, a 1% conversion rate, we'd already be over $160,000, which obviously is a massive number for businesses already. But to be fair, it is way more than that. This number was set based on referrals of an agency that basically tries to connect certain people. This referral was based on industry standards that we have seen for smaller companies, but the companies we worked with, they have a higher portfolio and a higher quality of those products that they sold. So for them, this product price would actually be $12,000 to $15,000. And now think about that. This 1% alone would already be way more than $500,000 in extra revenue that they've generated. So we know for certain that we brought them a lot of money from this solution alone. And I really want you to understand that I'm always on the passive side. So the numbers we generate are more passively calculated because we obviously want to give real insights and real results. And even though they're passive, you can already see that they bring a lot of value, right? That is just something I want to put out there so you understand where those numbers come from. If I pitch them to a client, they would obviously be a lot different because we have now real data. And this project, by the way, I can just share that now because it was already over a year ago. So much has changed and we have made so much improvements that these numbers would skyrocket even further. But that's all I put out there. You know about that now and that this is an actual thing. Now, to the next statistic, the actual cost of an AI versus a human handling. And this is pretty much insane if you look into here. If you look at this graph up here, it's the human one, which is a cost of around $60,000. And this is assuming a $20 cost per hour for a human that does 36,000 calls, literally nonstop, which is obviously also not realistic. So this would be way longer. But we just calculated it again passively with $60,000 compared to the AI that had literally a pure calling cost of around $3,000, which is very, very low. But coming back to the aspect of how long it would take a person to actually make 36,000 calls, we created another graph here that I definitely want to let you in on, which is how long it would actually take a human to make those calls. And you can see here, we have two different graphs. We have a normal human, which would take 500 days to make those 36,000 calls, which you can imagine is an insane amount of investment. And obviously constrained on the people and obviously also human error handling, which is another whole aspect that we haven't even considered in this. Now, this is a number that is actually reasonable and you can also see the math behind down here. I'll basically just put it there or Hendrik put that there so you can read through that and actually understand it. And for comparison, we have some more things. Let's, for example, say we have a superhuman. So we added a superhuman in here. There's literally non-stop calling and they would achieve the whole result in 350 days, which you can imagine is again a very unrealistic result, especially for a human. And if we compare that to AI did this whole thing in 15 days, which is incredible, right? If we put this into numbers, you can see that we literally just used the solution to get them a lot more money, and we achieved it literally just because we have AI. Otherwise, this would not be humanly possible. We did something in 15 days what a human would probably not even have done in 2 years' time. This for us was a game changer. And when we really digged into the data, we understood the power of these solutions. And before going to the next slide, I want to emphasize something that I emphasize in mostly any of my videos. Analyze the data of your voice AI solutions. If you build a solution for a client, you need to understand the data. This is not just relevant for you, whether or not you build it for your own business, but also what things go right, which things go wrong, where you see the money, where you see the time saving, where you see the biggest improvements. This is something you need to understand to leverage it for the future. That might be for selling services, that might be for implementing more fixes to bring in these extra few percents. Because as you've seen in the beginning, I've talked about the 27.5%, but there was another 4% that we accounted for. And all of this is literally just possible by us analyzing the data. When you understand the data, you can improve things and you can make things so much better than anyone else because you finally understand things. Make sure you leverage the data. And now coming to the last slide, which also contains these extra 4%, I'm going to show you in a second. So these are a couple of interesting things that we learned along the way while building this solution. And the first one is that it seems to be around 30% of the calls are picked up when done a double call combo. What that means is that we usually just increase the amount of calls being picked up by just calling them in a short period of time again. So let's, for example, say you get a phone call, you don't pick it up, we call again 7 minutes after. That often gives a sense of urgency, which brings people to pick up quicker and basically gives us a higher pickup rate and obviously more results for the client. Then another interesting one that we learned is that 7% of the calls were booked on the first call. This is a metric you should really write down. The stuff I'm sharing here is literally golden. This is stuff you don't find anywhere else. So I really hope you see the power that these numbers provide. Then the next one is probably my favorite one, which is the extra 4% that count towards the 31% of completion rate or people that we reactivated, which is coming from inbound calls alone. The way you have to imagine that is that when you build an assistant and you make outbound calls, you can imagine that sometimes people just miss the call, they don't see it, but they see a missed call on their phone. So what you can imagine is that they obviously want to call back because they're curious about the number, right? Especially if they see it's like a local number. They just call back on that number and try to get a hold of whoever tried to call them. So if you don't have an inbound assistant in place, which is usually an extra thing that you need to build out, you would miss out on 4%. And 4% for 20,000 leads is quite a lot. That's like 800 extra reactivated leads that you would have. And imagine 800 extra warm reactivated leads that you can try to target and sell stuff to. For a business, that alone is already massive. So knowing that you have those little edge cases that you can try to build in and get more out of the solution with things like that or cadence calling, you can get results that are way better than all of the competitors out there and what other people do. Even though I believe like we're so early in this whole voice AI game that there's not really much competition out there for people that actually do a really good job. Then another thing that is kind of like self-explanatory, but it kind of makes sense as well to just have it in here, which is that about 70% of the other calls actually have been either not picked up, they had an invalid number, or they went to voicemail. These are the main reasons that happened when someone, for example, didn't go through or we couldn't really reach them, right? That means that they, I don't know, the numbers are maybe outdated, they're not valid anymore, or maybe they just don't want to be called or have that number saved and don't want to have a new offer from that specific company, etc. And then the last one is a goodie that I wanted to have in there, and this alone is already worth thousands of dollars if you really leverage that. And this is that it really depends often on the day and the time of the day that you call people to get a better outcome. Imagine if you do a call at 3 a.m. in the night, you most likely know that you will get less people that actually pick up compared to someone at 5 p.m., right? This is obviously a very obvious example, but this even varies during the day quite a lot. If you know we have, for example, certain construction workers or I don't know, people working in shifts that you're targeting, you always know that they are working in a specific time zone and at a specific time. So their availability is usually determined by certain aspects of their life. And by you understanding that, so by you really understanding their ICP or where they're coming from and what they do, you can start targeting these calls on specific times of the day. And one really cool one that we had here is that we, for example, figured out that one part of the day accounted for about 16% of bookings compared to other times where there was only 8%. So it makes a massive difference from people that are actually booking calls. So there's always those peak times, and those are the ones that you try to figure out and then always try to target during those times whenever you call them again. So this is something that is golden, and literally what you see here on the slide is worth thousands of dollars alone. And that's something that mostly no one ever shares because these are really, really high level insights. But I want to make sure that you understand them because I want you to obviously succeed in the voice AI space. I'm in this thing for long, and we want to make sure we not just educate people, but we can help people as well to make an actual living with this. Now, to summarize all of that at the end, let me just recap a couple of things. We have finalized this successful campaign in a total of 2 months, and we know now also with the knowledge we have that this could be done in 2 weeks or even less based on whatever we build, and that we helped this business to get back around 5,500 warm and active leads. This is a huge number that can contribute to a lot of extra revenue for that business, especially given the numbers I showed you earlier. And even better than this, we have managed to do this with 15 times less cost compared to a human, and we have done this whole thing 32 times faster, which doesn't even fall into the equation because a human most likely would never even accomplish that way without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on literally just the human workforce alone. Now, everything I shared there are actual numbers. Now, to actually round this off and show you that these numbers are actually real, or there's at least a real company behind it, I'm going to show you the complete case study that we recorded with a client that gives you even more insights on what we built, who they are, etc. So this should probably give you everything you need to really see that voice AI is an actual thing. And I would not wish for more than you really seeing this opportunity, because this is such a massive game changer. If you run a business for yourself, this could literally be the switch that you need to go from like a medium-sized revenue to really just start scaling from that side, especially if you already have existing leads. Or if you want to turn this into a business, you can obviously start a complete remote business that you can literally just execute from anywhere. This is all stuff we teach in our community or in our agency. So in both cases, you should check out the link that is in the description and learn more about voice AI. We are more than happy to help you in any way, whether or not that means that you need employees or you need vetted and trained voice AI talent that you want to deploy in your companies, or you just want to learn about it by yourself, we literally are able now and in a position to cover all of this. So if that is something you're looking into, you should definitely check out the link in the description. That's all from my side for now. I really hope you enjoyed the case study, and thank you very much for watching. And lastly, if you find this video helpful, you're most welcome to just drop a like, so I know whether or not I should do more case studies or not. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one. Hey Jeff, happy having you on.
Yeah,
hey,
thank
Henrik.
you very much. Great to be here.
Yeah, we had a long history already. I think when was it? It was like August, maybe even earlier than that.
I think we've been working together for just about a year now.
Yeah, wow, that time passes so quickly. I love it. And we had so much cool things going on since then, and yeah, I'd love to share with my community and with all of our viewers a little bit more about what we did, because I think we did really great things. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love if you can share a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how all of this came together.
Yeah, totally. So a little bit about myself. I've been, I've been a product leader, strategic product leader for over a decade. I've worked in a vast array of industries, building out SaaS platforms and MarTech platforms in supply chain, automotive, as well as real estate. And, I've always had kind of an entrepreneurial mindset. And so just, a few, about 14, 15 months ago, a little over a year, I had an opportunity to start a HR tech, conversational AI technology. I had gotten wind of a specific opportunity to help recruiters augment their outreach, right? There's a real problem in the HR talent acquisition community where recruiters just don't have enough bandwidth to maintain effective conversations and levels of engagement with the applicants to keep them really engaged with the organizations that they apply to. And so what I set out to do was leverage what was a new technology at the time of combining different aspects of generative AI into conversational AI. And I started building my own proof of concept really on my own, just basically using YouTube as a university, watching tutorials of how to use different APIs to call in, using text to speech, voice to speech technologies, and using transcribers, and all in VS Code. And I just did a step-by-step and built really my own voice bot where I was talking through my laptop and having a conversation with a simple prompt, and proving the concept that you can tie in a transcriber, text to speech and speech to text models and have a conversation with an AI agent. This was early 2024, so very new. And it was just fun to be on that cutting edge. And then so when I found the use case of the recruiting assistant, I knew that was a little bit bigger than my capabilities at the time. And I'd watched several of your videos. Again, you were really just doing very detailed walkthroughs on YouTube. And I reached out to you and I was like, hey, I got this idea. And you and I got on the phone on the meeting, and we were chatting about it, and we were talking through all the different technologies. And it wasn't very long before we had a Fortune 200 company on the hook as a development partner that wanted to help fund the build if they could be one of the first clients to use it. And so that's when you and I really put our heads together to start architecting out what the solution would be like. And that was just over a year ago when I think we first got started. And then by the beginning of Q3, we had a beta, and we were able to call almost 20,000 applicants for a Fortune 200 organization over Q4 of 2024. So that's how we got here.
Yeah, I love that. It was one of my favorite projects that we worked on, because we learned so much about that timing on when to call someone plays a big role. We always think you can just have something run all the time and it brings you always consistent results, but it's super versatile. And the learnings we had from that, especially given such a massive client, they were insane. So they were great for us, especially like you also say. It was a super early market. I mean, this whole technology is around since what, end of 2023. So it was very new, and I think it's still very new. Like even now, at this point, we have so many advancements coming in every day, making this thing so much better. So what we already managed to put together in 2024, you can imagine how that's gonna kick in like a year or two. So yeah, very exciting project. I love it.
I was
Maybe
quite excited about the fact of how many people we were able to contact and actually inform them of how their job applications went. I mean, imagine all those 20,000 people. I don't think any one of them would have been contacted, or as many of them anyway, if we didn't build this thing. So providing value and then informing that, you know, there's other opportunities and things like that, and a company is super beneficial for them. I also liked one of my favorite things that we built out was the inbound aspect. That was your idea, actually, Jeff. You're like, why don't we build out an inbound thing? And man, that went from like 28% of people finishing the full thing, right? The full things that we had set up, to about 31% of people who completed it just because we had the inbound set up. So little touches here and there just create such a big difference. And I was excited to build up this thing.
Yeah, the inbound, being able to just throw out an SMS text after a certain call campaign to initiate or entice that inbound call really sets this solution apart. I've worked on other solutions in more on the sales side, leveraging conversational AI, and a lot of even $50 million organizations who have a full custom code AI voice solution struggle managing those inbound opportunities. And the lift that you said, Henrik, that it generated was definitely worth putting that implementation strategy together.
100%, yeah.
I think even the callback option as well. So we had that in there. Would be good.
Callback scheduled, yep, absolutely. Because when you're calling throughout the day, you're going to catch people at work, and just giving them the opportunity and welcoming, hey, if you're busy, I get it. Having that agent have the intelligence factor that it can identify if the person's busy, give them the opportunity to schedule a call back, and then leveraging the call scheduler to actually call back at that same date and time. It really proves the validity and being able to deliver on the client expectation.
Exactly, and I think especially the whole industry experience plays such a huge role in this whole thing, because I know it sounds so easy building a voice agent, but given that we had all of those small little nuances, right? Even the inbound agent making a difference of 4% with 20,000 people, that's quite a lot, right? And these kind of things, putting them all together at the end, you get a number that is way higher than just having a regular voice agent like they're being sold nowadays. So it's super important having some really in-depth experience, which I think was great that we had the chance to collaborate on that.
There's also the conversational aspect, Jeff. Like, you guys knew what to say. Whereas if I were to create the thing for this specific use case, it wouldn't have went as well, because you guys already had the experience of working with, in this area.
Yeah. Well, really,
there are certain words you'd have to speak to make the person, I don't know, more like, make it seem more friendly, I guess.
Yeah. Well, what I think helped propel this project to the level of success that we've seen was really the aspects of this partnership that we both brought to the table. We brought industry experience, deep industry experience, how to talk to an applicant, the questions to ask the applicant in a pre-screening format, and then also the little nuances like times of day or how many outreaches to make versus a phone call versus an SMS text to prompt that level of engagement. And then the technical know-how, what architectures can we use, infrastructures can we build out to to produce the best quality product. One aspect that I really thought was amazing that you guys brought to the table was the squad concept. And this was, even though to the applicant on the phone, it seems like you're just talking to one agent. On the back end, it's actually a series of agents, and that they all have their own specialized portion of the conversation, and the user, the applicant, gets passed seamlessly from one to the other. Not only does that help reduce our cost, because AI, it still has a cost for operations. But then each of these digital agents on the back end all have their own specialty. And so it reduces the hallucination and the aspects of going off script.
100%, yeah. And things are advancing a lot in that. Like when we started out, I think squads were also one of the first things that we could leverage as like a multi-agent AI agent, if you want to call it like that. Right now we have also conversational workflows that we can build into it, where you can enforce some sort of conversational pathway and then hand that off again to a more general agent. So all turns into this kind of conversational workflow automation, if you will. And I think if you're not every day exposed to that kind of knowledge, it's very, very hard keeping up and actually understanding what's possible in the current market. So I think that's where we could really bring in our expertise compared to you really having the industry knowledge, which I think you both need to actually build a great solution. Because even if you miss one information on what's relevant for a target audience, you might never even convert them. They might not even be interested, especially if it's in the first one or two sentences of whatever you say with a voice AI. So yeah, it sounds really good, and I really love the project. I think any kind of viewers, they would really appreciate some numbers. So maybe we can dive into what we actually achieved with the product, because now we know how the tech looks like or what the tech was about. But the numbers are probably even more important and more exciting as well, I would say.
Yeah.
Do you remember you mentioned the cost, Jeff? Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Do you remember how much it cost, Jeff, to run the thing out of?
Oh man, I think for the volume, like a lot of the costs, the operational costs are volume driven, and it looks like I just closed the slide that I wanted to repeat. And the volume of outreach that gets us is roughly 10,000 applicants a month. And it consists of 2 outbound phone calls and then the SMS text follow-up. And then the agent is available for inbound. And so, yeah, for 4,500, we can really make the most out of contacting 10,000 people with multiple outreach, which is really what it's going to take. I know on the sales side, I hear a lot of people I know on the sales side say that it takes between 7 and 12 outreaches to really get in contact with somebody. So using this talent acquisition focused approach, we're able to contact about 50% of our applicants with that 3-part outreach, 2 calls and a text.
Yeah, that's very solid.
I have some numbers. So what I'm going to share with you guys here is it's our beta release, which took part over a 3-month period of time at the end of 2024. We targeted between 19 and 20,000 applicants. I think the actual number was like 19,400, which would have taken a human well over a year. Just full-time, banging out phone calls all day, every day. It would have taken a human over a year, almost a year and a half or so, to call 19,000 applicants back. We were able to do that over 6 to 8 weeks. And so incredible efficiencies there. Like I mentioned earlier, we had successful engagement with 52%. So just over half of the applicants that we wanted to get in contact with, we were able to get them on the phone. Once on the phone, they were able to take a few different deviations for a call outcome. What we deemed as a successful outcome was either if they completed the pre-screening 100%, or if they completed a partial pre-screening, because that data goes back to the client right into their CRM, and then their recruiting team is able to look at the applicants that have one, told the AI assistant, hey, I am still looking for a job. I am still interested in working for you. And here's some more information about my profile that's not in my resume. Am I able to, what's the work arrangements, salary expectation, your typical pre-screening questionnaire. Now the human team has that data, and they're able to filter, sift through it, analyze it, and then make their human-to-human outreach if there is a match later on after the phone call. So after we identified, we had successful conversations with 52%. 52% picked up the phone, and we had a live conversation with them. 75% of that 50% actually completed the pre-screening 100%, which is an incredible level of engagement. It actually comes out to be 30% of the entire population, that 20,000, were still actively seeking a role. So you have all these people that have been dispositioned, basically, whether it's the ATS system or the human recruiter, told them that they weren't available for that role at the time that they applied, are now getting re-engaged. And then that data is going full circle back to the recruiting team. They're able to match this new data set against open roles and then make a personal outreach. And over the course of those 3 months, this system did influence between 50 and 60 hires, which is incredibly valuable because that's 50 to 60 new hires that would have taken this client longer to fill. And as we know in the talent acquisition space, time to fill is a very, very key success metric. So if we're able to shrink that cycle down 30%, that's a huge, huge efficiency.
About 1% of those candidates, you said, got like a job or got past into the next stage of the recruitment process.
Oh, what I was saying was 30% of the 20,000 were still looking for a job. That's the first question is, hey, are you still open to work? So that's a large pipeline of applicants that are now open for reassessment.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, you said 50 to 60 people or something like that.
Oh, 50 to 60 hires came out of that re-engagement.
Yeah, how much do you think those hires are worth to the company? If you'd have to put a number to them.
Well, we are targeting some basically high skill set, high skill level roles like program and project management, software engineering. So these are all, easily six-figure positions. So we could probably draw an average of, let's just say 130,000 annual salary, and we'll just say, I know 58 was one of the metrics that I heard last. So $130,000 annual salary times 58 is that's 7.5 million in annual salary.
Yeah,
that they've now brought on board.
And that by something that is used to be, like abandoned leads, stuff that you don't really use anymore because there's no one really being capable.
Well, in the HR space, in talent acquisition, they call that the black hole, right? The applicants these days are just throwing out resumes and hardly anybody is hearing back. So now you have a solution where these applicants are hearing back, and it's building rapport and it's building a relationship with the company, and now you're almost you're almost more engaged. Hey, they reached out. Great. There's a good reputation and branding there, opportunity there too.
I'm very happy that now more people have jobs. That's probably the coolest thing out of this whole thing. But the next thing I'm interested in, I'm pretty sure like the recruiter or whatever the person is, do they get like a certain cut for like moving the person forward to the company?
So
Is
these
that a
are
thing, or-
corporate. This is a corporate talent acquisition team, and I'm not too sure about their compensation. They might just be salary, but you do touch on an interesting opportunity, right? There's a whole segment of the talent acquisition market that is independent or boutique recruiters. And those are often called headhunters, right? And so if a headhunter organization leveraged technology such as this, yeah, they have a considerable asset that can go re-engage with applicants, pull them back into a cycle, and then yes, you're on point there, Henrik. Those independent recruiters do get compensated if their applicant gets hired.
I see.
And I've seen 10% of the salary
Really?
as compensation. So yep, that's another area of opportunity in the market for sure.
So
Yeah.
what, 58 times 13?
Yeah, that's $754,000 of headhunter fees.
Yeah, so that's a solid number given,
Yeah,
it's if you market your solution that way, you can say, yeah, if you give us 20,000 leads, we can make you $500,000 extra. I think there's barely anyone saying no to that.
yeah, that's definitely it's easily a 2x return.
Yep, 100%. So I just love the fact that it's so easy to build something like this if you have that industry specific knowledge. So given that first model, where's this whole thing heading for you now?
Oh, where's this heading? Well, this is just tip of the iceberg, right? So there's so many use cases out there that I think can benefit from this technology. And now that we have this infrastructure, right now it's hyper focused on talent acquisition, and that's always going to be a path forward, right? Whether it's large corporations with recruiting teams of 30, 50, even 100 human recruiters that we can augment their outreach, or if it's the boutique staffing agency that's sitting on a database of 100,000 applicants that have somehow come through their system, and we want to reignite those applicants, get fresh data updates through a call, and then now you can match them and move them through current hiring positions and opportunities. But then there's other use cases, right? There's I don't want to give a lot of roadmap ideas away, but the future holds finding other use cases, whether it's in other industries, real estate, automotive, anywhere that there's an abundance of outreach and there's the need to share information. I think that's also an important caveat to touch on is as humans, we're kind of apprehensive about receiving a call that's direct about sales, right? So one thing that I'm looking forward to growing in is where the sharing of information can lead to a sale. So it's more of a consultative approach. Like for instance, real estate. I've worked on some projects there, and it's sharing information about the homes that lead has looked at on the website, and you can get some dynamic data from their search history, and you can augment the conversation by throwing variable data into it. It really builds credibility for the AI assistant. And then you can transfer that lead straight to the agent, straight to their cell phone, and then you got a really hot lead. But yeah, I'm targeting the use cases where it's more personalized service level conversations that can help grow and scale business.
Yeah, I love this, and especially given that we have managed these kind of things so early, especially when we tried our system. I mean, it was outbound, right? So yeah, it was not fully cold cold calling. It was people that the company interacted with previously. But even there, we managed to solve one of the biggest issues with it, which is handling an outreach effectively and efficiently. Because as of voice AI, and even until today, it's still one of the worst use cases if it comes to leveraging voice AI, because it's usually not as good with objection handling and with recognizing emotions. And knowing what I know, we are already getting there. So the trajectory is coming of us having emotional, intelligent voice AI. And imagine now that we are still that early, that in like a few months from now, we're going to have emotional, intelligent voice AI. Implement that into a use case like that, you're going to see immediate returns that are 10 times better than what we currently have. Because if there's a bad situation in something, or someone needs to sell a house, and the AI can emotionally recognize it and answer accordingly, that's going to be a big game changer. So we are still at the very beginning, and knowing that and knowing your vision, I'm 100% sure you can find really, really good use cases turning this into a massive business.
Yeah, and then also something that I'm experimenting with right now, which I think has tremendous value for the future, is being able to use the tool calls that are now becoming so popular and leveraging, tying these agents into real-time updated data sets. And then being able to call on that data set, inform the caller, hey, hold on one second, let me look into that, retrieve data from an API, and then be able to educate and pass on that information straight to the caller. I think we have tremendous upside opportunity there as well.
100%. I mean, that was kind of the first thing, right? We had ChatGPT, but ChatGPT itself is just as limited. Then you give it the possibility of talking to different services. You basically bridge that gap of it being like an isolated system. You give it access to other things. Kind of the same thing with voice AI, which is really cool. And that was for us the starting point as well of seeing, okay, yeah, there's actually utility where you can bring in CRM systems, you can synchronize data, you can enrich things. But now we're moving even towards protocols. We're moving to things like MCP, Model Context Protocol. Yep. And Google also released A2A. I'm not sure if you've heard of that one. It's basically all a way of standardizing or implementing a set of rules that allow us to have multiple agents talk to each other on the same call, delegate tasks, and do things. So I assume at some point we might even are at a level where we just call our voice AI agent and we ask it something to do a thing for us, and it says, okay, cool, yeah, I'm going to call you back in a few minutes, I'm going to get this solved for you. And then like 10 minutes later just calls and says, yeah, good, this is done, here's the data, it's stored, you have an email about it, done. So this is kind of where we are moving to.
Absolutely. Because you think how reliable, right? The callback feature that we programmed into our solution, where, hey, I recognize you're busy. Maybe it's not a good time to have this conversation. When can I call you back? Oh, call me back tomorrow at 2. Okay. So automatically, programmatically, we schedule a call back for tomorrow at 2, and we deliver on that. So not only is the lead or the applicant or whoever's expecting the call, they scheduled it, they're expecting, and then you actually call back on that time. How often on like humans, and unless I put that on my calendar, I'm probably going to be late, or it might even slip my mind. So we can build in, that reliability, which is going to build credibility for who we're building these systems for.
True, and I imagine doing this to 400 or 500 people a day. It's just not possible, right? Yeah, love it. It's really awesome, and I'm very stoked seeing that you're in this space as well and really believing into it. We are big believers of voice AI, and I don't think we go anywhere. I mean, I've seen Apple now starting to support basically brain implants, but to be fair, I probably would be one of the few people that definitely do not want to have a brain implant, just like to control my voice AI on my device. So. I would say for me, at least for a longer time, it's definitely going to be voice. That's the fastest medium of communicating with technology.
Yeah.
And knowing that we are there and that a lot of people are at that position that still don't even know that voice AI exists. I mean, we are still super, super early. We have great possibilities of moving this thing forward, and I'm super, super excited seeing that we, and especially you, already figured that out last year. So, yeah, really appreciate everything. If there's one more thing that you want to give along to other people just starting out or businesses learning about voice AI, is there anything that you'd share as like a special advice?
Yeah, I would just say don't overthink it. take action. And your first action should be to reach out to someone like on this team, somebody who has been involved with the technology since its inception. We're still very, very early, and it's amazing what level of experience so few people have been able to develop. But when you can when you can sit down and have a conversation with basically a voice or a conversational AI expert, express your pain points, express your problems. When you talk to the right person, solutions can be developed and designed pretty quickly, and then action can be taken very quickly. And so you don't need to look at, a 12-month development cycle. You can get an MVP into your organization in weeks, depending on the size of the problem or the solution, and then you can continue to iterate on top of that and just build it out until it solves everything in its entirety. So my advice would be, don't overthink it, get in contact with an expert, and then go from there.
Yeah, appreciate those insights. It's cool having you on, Jeff. Really appreciate it, and wish you all the best.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite, guys.
Of course. Thanks.
Looking forward to working else on the next project
working.
together.
We will. Thank you.